G'day folks, well this is the Witeden, I think it's called the Super Mix-Up 3x3. It's the same puzzle as the LimCube Mix-Up Ultimate, and if I had known that LimCube made the same puzzle I definitely would not have bought the Witeden one, because it's everything we've come to expect from Witeden, namely a crappy puzzle. You can kind of hear bits floating all around the place. These bits just come out and wiggle around. It's just not well made. As I said, I didn't know there was another version of it, but there you go. So bear with me during this solve. This is going to be a little bit ginger because I don't want to dislodge pieces unnecessarily. So I'm going to take you through the method that I'll use to solve this, and there's a couple of interesting bits. It is a quite tricky solve, to be honest. It's a really good puzzle though. So it'd be a great puzzle if it was the LimCube, and I'm guessing if you do have the LimCube, let me know in the comments if it's a decent puzzle. I'd be surprised if it was as bad as this one. Okay, the first thing that I want to do is try and get the edges into the edge positions. And I'm going to start by just seeing if there's any there already. And when I say that, I can see this one is not. And even though that is in the edge position, it's got these other edges around it, so I'm not calling that done yet. But this one I will, so I'll just call this the bottom face. I'm going to try and place some on the bottom face. I'd look through this middle layer and just see what I could find there, and I don't really see anything going, so I could try and turn it, but the key thing is I've got 3 of these edges which are right next to each other, so that's going to be tricky to get them. So the next thing that I would do would be looking at the top. I can see there's actually one on the top here that's ready to turn down to the bottom, so I might as well do that. Let's now see if that creates anything more. That does. It actually sort of puts this here, and what I can do is put this one, which just contains that edge in that position, I can put it down to this position, and then I know it's going to be clear. So explain what I'm doing, putting it into that central position there, and because it's clear on either side I can now turn that around, and now I've got another one. So I can now go and place that into, let's see, this one here. That should now be 3 edges on the bottom. Let's see if we can, I've got a whole bunch here that are all right next to each other, so we'll need to deal with them soon. Let's see what else is on the top. There's another one of those on the top, which might not be a bad idea, just to put it, again, to put it in the middle, and then turn it across like that. And at least I can get that one placed into the bottom, which position this one here is the one which needs it. Okay, if we look at the bottom face, we can see that all 4 have an edge in the edge position and no other of these edges surrounding them. That's the key. Alright, so now I've got these up in the middle, and I would hope that there'd be some that would be separated. In fact, here's one that's separated. So what I can do is grab that one, that's all clear there, and I can now place that one up in the top somewhere and replace it with something else. So that one is sitting here. I mean, if I want to, I can turn it around to the back, but I'm going to be rotating the cube, plus the cube doesn't turn anyway, so there you go. They are next to each other. I've got 2, 3, 4, 5 here that are next to each other. I've got a lot of clear spaces. Okay, it's now time to show what do we do with 2 bits that are next to each other that I need to separate. It's actually pretty simple, and what I want to do is just turn one turn so that one of the bits goes onto another edge portion. And what I'm going to do now is flip this edge, so this part goes over to here. So to do that, I'll just turn it up to the top face like that, and then bring it down in the opposite orientation. The purpose of that is when I turn back that slice, you can see that little bit has now gone into a correct position, and that little bit, which was with another one, is also in the correct position. So I've just created 2 more edges there, so I'm going to turn both of them up to the top. So you can see now I've got 3 on the top that are done, I've got 4 on the bottom that are done, I've got these middle slice bits to go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a row. So what I'll do first is at least separate this one from that one in the same manner. I'll turn that like that, and to be honest, in this case I can actually, because there was nothing else, if you look at this and this, they contain no other edge parts, so I could just do that and then turn it like that, and that will get that one separate and ready to go. So that's another one that's done. And there'll be one on the bottom actually, because I remember I turned that up. So if I want to keep that as it was, all good. Now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 next to each other. Let's see what we can do here. The first thing I can do is separate these two from those two. And I can do that. You'll notice at the back there's an empty slot, so I can simply turn like that. And that now allows me to do the same thing I did before. Separate these two and then flip this one. And then I can turn back like that, and I've got those two done. And that of course leaves me just with these two again. Now we know how to do these two, so I'm just going to quickly set up to show what would happen if there was only one that was on its own block. Alright, well when we've got one of these edges on its own thing and that's the only thing left, what we want to do is something like the following. Just hold it here. You've obviously got another one in the back there. What we're going to do is just push it like that, give it one turn, and you'll notice that that brings this one right next to the center, and it also pushes this one there. So what we're going to do now is give that a twist. Now when we bring this back, what's going to happen is firstly that one is going to correctly place, and now we've got these two on their own thing. That's exactly what we want. And we can now bring this empty slot over, and we know exactly what to do with these two. Turn that across there, bring it up to the top and flip it. Yeah, which one is it? That one there. And then when we bring it back, all of those edges are in the edge positions. Now, of course, the edges aren't solved at this point, but that's the first major stage of the solve. There's a lot of major stages. The second thing that I'm going to do is actually solve these edges for the sole purpose of testing for a single flipped edge. And if you have a single flipped edge, it means there's one of these little wings that's also misoriented. So obviously we don't have centers in at the moment. We're going to be guided by a corner. I just always choose this one, white, red, blue. So I would say, well, if that's white, blue, the white, red needs to be here. So I would go find that. Oh, there it is. Next one is white, orange, which is this one. And then the white, green. So I'm basically forgetting everything except for solving these edges, because I want to see if there is a single flipped edge going on. Now, orange, green, that's got to go to that position. I've got a red, blue up there, which being guided by these goes there. And I need one more. What about the orange, blue? Go down here. Alright, so that's the fourth piece in the center. I'm going to now solve. That one's solved, which is good. Yellow, red. I need a yellow, blue. Well, that's solved as well. That's great. Oh my goodness, they've all ended up. That's actually really cool for my purposes. So they've just magically, that's almost never happened to me in my entire life, that they've all been solved. But what's really great is I do have a single flipped edge. That's what I wanted to demonstrate how to deal with it. So you can see that all of the other edges, if we're just looking at these edge parts, every face is correct except for these two faces where this edge here is flipped. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to flip this edge and we're going to flip this little yellow wing back here. Nothing else is going to be touched. but we're going to take care of it now. And here's what we do. I'm going to show you this on a solved puzzle first. Now here we have a solved puzzle, and on this puzzle I'm going to show how to flip an edge. Let's flip this one at the front here. What we're going to do is do the corner piece series for cuboids, but instead of turning the upper face, I'm going to turn this slice there as my upper face. So I do that, I then do right 2, I return that and do left 2, and then I repeat. Okay, that's done it once. You can see that it's just cycled these 3 pieces. And what I was thinking about is, how do I get this to flip? So here's what I've come up with. I want to move it around to there. So I've done a back anti-clockwise, and then a U plus, or turning it like that, and then another back anti-clockwise to put it in this position. That red-green is now going to come over here, and it's going to be flipped. What I want to do this time, instead of the corner piece series for cuboids turning the right face first, is to do one where I turn the left face first. And that means this is going that way. So I carry that out. Now I did have some setups, so let's undo them. You remember I had to do that, I had to undo that, and I had to undo that. And you can see there that it has absolutely flipped that edge, and if you look carefully you might be able to see that little blue piece there is raised. So that's the only thing that it's actually done, and that is how I'm going to flip with a fly. That is how I'm going to flip that single edge. Alright. Now that you've seen what to do, we've got this in the correct position, so we carry out the first of these corner piece series for cuboids. Now I've just felt something at the back come out, and I've got to do a left turn still, but I want to go, and now it's that piece there. I actually have no clue, welcome to the quality of this puzzle, whether that orientation is correct. I suppose I should have a clue. First thing is getting it back in there. Okay. Now I had to do, I think that was where it was, and I had to do a left 2. So let's do that. I'll complete this sequence, and then if that doesn't look correct, looks correct at the moment, so that should be okay. Alright, and then I did a back anti-clockwise, and then a U plus, and another back anti-clockwise, and now a left corner piece series for cuboids. That's done. Let's undo those setups. Now, of course, we'll know that it's correct because we now see that has been correctly flipped, and all the rest looks good as well. So that must have been in the correct position. So that's now taken care of that single flipped edge. Good. The next stage is to reduce the edges. That's actually a fun part. It's not difficult. And I'm going to do a couple and then skip through to the last few. So I would look for any of these pieces in a center position. And what I want is to match that color, which is orange, with an orange edge here. Now what's going to happen is I'm going to push this edge in, bring it down, and return it. And that's reduced. However, before we do that, it also does the same thing here. So this goes into here. So what is really helpful is to go, well, that's green, so I'd like to get a green edge here if I can. Here's one. Now the other thing you may have noticed is that this is pointing upwards towards the edge, if you like. On the bottom, this green needs to be pointing upwards towards this edge. So they are all oriented correctly. So we're going to now reduce the orange edge there, and if we check the back, we'll see that that green edge is also reduced. So here's a blue, there's a blue edge, I put that into position, I check the base, which is orange, it happens to be an orange edge, away I go, blue done, orange done. I'm just looking for, okay, let's do this one. I've got yellow. So I put a yellow edge ready. I check the bottom. Oh, there's no piece there. It's an actual center. So I can't do two. All that matters is this piece needs to be an unreduced edge, which it is. So in this case, I'm only going to reduce that single yellow edge there. That now has that orange center in it. I'll do one more and then skip through. So there's a white going with that white. On the bottom is a yellow. So I'd like to put a yellow here. One exists. Here we go. Turn, insert, return. As I said, it's fun, pretty simple. I'll cut back in a bit later. Okay, I'm getting close to the end, so thought I'd cut back in here. Let's continue. We've got a red there. So I'll set that red piece up, and on the bottom there's nothing, so just here I need to have an unreduced edge. I've got a white here with a white edge, so that's set up. Now there's nothing on the bottom, and even worse, there's no other unreduced edges, so this is actually the last thing to reduce. Now I'll show you what happens if I just do this. Because there's something happening on the opposite side, that's done, but it just creates this problem. So we're not going to fix anything doing that. So what we need to do is basically get rid of this. I just put it up next to this one normally and replace it with a completed edge of the same color. This is a green, that's what I'm interested in. Also, at the back, I want a third edge of that color. So I've got one edge here, which I need to do, a reduced edge there, a reduced edge here. Now I'm going to do the move, because it's going to put this into here, and it'll keep that edge reduced. What it has done though, remember we put that out of the way, it's created another green center, and it's created another green edge with another green center. So now we're in a position to get that one lined up. We turn over, oh look, it's green. We line that up with that, and we now have everything we need to complete those final two green edges. So that's reducing the edges as far as these parts go. Clearly we've got those little wings to go, and I'm going to do them soon, but I'm not going to do them now, because what I'm going to do now is check that the centers are in the correct position. Because remember, these centers have been moving around all over the place. Now that the edges are done, they've landed in the center positions, but they may not be correct. White is here, red is here, this should be blue. That's orange, which is good, that's green, which is good. Ah, that's the blue, so clearly the blue and the yellow have got to swap. So for this, I'm going to use the corner piece series, and I'm going to be using this all through this solve in varying ways. So I want let's say initially, I want the yellow center to come here into its correct position. So what I'm going to do is that's going to be on the back face, and this is my up face. The three pieces that I'm going to move is this yellow center, the blue center, and this white piece here. And to do this, what I'm going to do is do a corner piece series by turning that as if it was my upper face. So I do that turn, and then my right, and then I return this, and then instead of my left, I actually do the middle slice as the left. And then I continue with that corner piece series. Now, if we now check the edges, we'll notice that the white is still there, orange, green, red, the blue's not, but the yellow is. And remember, the blue and the yellow had to swap. So what we've done is do that 3 cycle. So now what we need to do is say, right, well, I've got to get that blue into that position. So let's firstly consider that blue edge. I'm actually going to turn it around like this. What I want to do ultimately is do a setup to put that center into that position. I think I just called it an edge, but I meant a center. So I want the center to be in that position. What you may have noticed is that the piece on the back comes up and retains its orientation. And so if I have that in that position, it's going to go to the correct center position in the correct orientation. That's the first thing. Then I know that this piece is going to roll across to there. Now clearly at the moment, if I just roll like that, that's wrong. So I need to have that turned like that so that it can roll. When it rolls, it's correctly oriented. And then, what's the third piece? Let's put another white over here. Okay, so at the moment, what do we have? This white part is going to flatten to there. This white part is going to change its orientation, and I want it to go to that blue position, the blue center. And notice that that white part is going to reduce to that white edge. That's the key. That's what I want to achieve here, because I've got these 1, 2, 3 pieces. So I've got the pieces set up. I needed this to be a white edge because this is going to roll across to it and reduce it. That's my blue center, which is coming here, and that will go and reduce that white edge. So this is just a matter of getting the pieces set up into the correct positions. I've done a little turn of this slice so that the blue center is correctly there. Now I'm going to carry out the same sequence. Just trying to finish it off. There we go. Okay, now what was the setup? Remember, I turned this in here. You can see everything has flattened really nicely. That white has gone to there, the blue center is there, and there's the other white. Let's check the centers. White on top, red, blue, orange, green, yellow. Lovely. So the centers are now done. Now if you had more centers that were out than that, you would just continue doing that 3 cycle and putting the centers where they needed to go until you got down to what I was there, that last one, and you just make sure that you have the same color edges involved. Alright, so that is the centers completed. We next want to start reducing the edge wings. Now this is pretty simple again, and it's almost the same as the move we just did, which is why I like doing it now, because we've just been doing that sort of move. And you remember that with that move we moved, if this is the upper face, we move that center, this center, and that piece. What we're going to be moving now is that blue wing, this yellow wing, and this white wing. And once again, the wing at the back is going to retain its orientation. So this is a flat blue wing that's going to come up and sit in here perfectly. These 2 wings on the top face are going to change orientation. So this yellow one is going to flatten. This white one, which is currently raised, is going to flatten into there. So I would first say, well, that's a yellow. I've got that going into this yellow one here, which is great. I would then either say the white is going to flatten, so I'll get a white edge base there, or I've got a blue which is already flat, which can come up to here. Now ideally, you can understand, if I had a blue wing inside a white edge base, that would be perfect. I don't think I do. I don't. So I'll make do with what I've got. I'm going to deal with the blue and this yellow. So I set the 3 pieces up like that. Again, this is on the back face, these 2 are on the up face, and I carry out this corner piece series. Remember last time I turned the slice, now I just turn the left face. All done. You can see that blue is now reduced, the yellow is reduced, and that white, which was raised here, is now flat in the red. Let's turn it around. I've got a raised red piece just there. That is going to flatten across to here. what can I place on the back? Because this piece is flat, it's going to become raised on the back, so I'm not really looking for a white base. What I am looking for potentially is a flat red wing that I can put there that will do this one as well. There's one. Okay, so I can just turn that up to the position in the back, and that means that'll come there and do the red. That red wing will go here and do this one. There's those two reds done. And essentially that's all I'm going to do, and it only gets a little bit tricky at the end, so I'll do one more now and then skip through. So this is a white raised. I'm always looking for a raised one if I can get it. There's an orange raised, so I'd like to place that into an orange base. There's an orange base here. I'll just check that there's no orange bases with yellow wings. Oh my goodness, there is. Look at that. That's exactly what I need. I just got to replace this one over here. Okay, so I've got the raised white that's going to flatten to here, the raised orange that's going to flatten to here, and this flat yellow which is going to go here. That's a gold rush, bonanza, something. It's going to do 3 in one hit. That's what I want. Look at that, the white's done, the yellow's done, and that orange is done as well. Okay, that's a nice note to finish that little bit. I'll continue and cut back in a little bit later. Alright, well we've got a few left, not too many. I've got a blue raised one there, so I'm going to try and find the blue that belongs in. There's a red raised one, so there should be a red base somewhere. There it is. I've got to place that. Where have I got to place that? And I think I just lost, there it is, that one. Okay, just get it into that position, and that actually will complete that. That'll do 3 of them as well, so that's a good thing. Carry that one out. Here we go. Now, when you get down to the last little bit, you often find something like this. You'll find you won't find a single flipped edge. If you do, you haven't fixed, or a single wing raised, you haven't fixed the flipped edge, but we did that earlier. So you'll notice here that there's actually 2 raised edges, and they're both green. Okay, so what do? Well, we simply grab another green one and put it in the position. If we think about what's going to happen, that green which is raised is going to flatten correctly. This raised green is going to go and flatten correctly, and this flat green is going to come up here correctly. So that is what we need to do. And that's done. I will set up for maybe one other case involving this sort of thing. Alright, well here's another one, and we've got a raised green and we've got a raised yellow in the green. So that raised green is going to go flatten over here. This raised yellow needs to go flatten to another yellow. So we'll put that there, and we'll note that that yellow, which is flat, is going to come up here and be flat as well. So that, all we're really doing here is looking at the colours that we've got and whether they're raised or flat, and just putting the correct piece into the third position. Alrighty, so that's how we reduce all the wings, and it's worth repeating, if you do end up with one raised wing, it means you have a flipped one of these edges which you haven't taken care of. Now at this point what we're going to do is start solving the cube. It may actually be just solving the cube, but there is of course an issue that can occur right near the end. So this little section is just however you'd solve a cube normally. I'm going to do it how I would do it, since I'm me. Just quickly get the white cross happening. Okay, that's all the white edges. Place some middle edges here. One more over here. Alright, that leaves my fourth one there, and I'll have a look at these two back edges. I need that to be yellow blue, and I need that to be yellow orange. So I can turn the yellow blue around. Here's the yellow orange. There we go, and now I'll be left with three edges in some configuration. Now, they won't be flipped because I took care of them earlier, or I won't have a single flipped one, put it that way. What have I got here? Red yellow to there, red green to there, and that's in position flipped. So I've got two swapped edges, but I'm not at the point where I need to do anything drastic yet. I simply need to turn that upper face one turn, as I would if I got this on a normal Rubik's Cube. And now resolve these edges. Where does that leave us? Red, green, that's now got a 3 cycle. Red, green to here, yellow, red to here, yellow, green to here. So I'll carry that out in order that this one, which needs to go there, will flip. Alright, so that's all the edges done, and that's great. We may be clear. What we need to do now is to solve the corners and see if we are clear. So again, I'm going to use the corner piece series. You remember that to do the wings, I did a corner piece series. I'll turn this as my upper face, if you like. Now I'm going to do the ordinary corner piece series and turn this as my upper face, and that's going to move corners around rather than wings. So I like it. It's just varying what bits you're using. No, that's not obvious. Here's one. Yep. And I should say, now that the cube is mostly back to normal, it is easier to turn, but it still doesn't have a good feel to it. It's not a feel of a quality cube, unfortunately. Yellow, orange, blue, going over to there. Green, orange, white. Yep, we've got one here. I'll just do that setup. Undo the setup. Alright, that's those four done. Yellow, red, blue in position. What's going on here? White, green, red to there. White, blue, red to there. And that one's in position. Okay, well, as you know, on a normal Rubik's Cube, that is impossible. You can't have all the edges solved and two corners needing to swap. But this is not a normal Rubik's Cube, and so we can. Now, the two swapped corners can also manifest as two swapped edges. So it's either of those things. This fix will deal with that. There's actually two fixes that you can use. The first fix is one that I came up with. The second fix is one that I did not come up with, and I'll tell you about that in a tick. What we want to do is swap two edges. Now, and the reason for that is if I have two swapped corners on their own, that's bad. If I have two swapped corners and two swapped edges, that's fine. I can fix and deal with that. So I've got to create two swapped edges here. The first fix is to do the following 8 times. Here we go. Down, down, up, up. Turn that, and then reverse that down, down, up, up, very gingerly because it's Witeden. Oh my goodness. Is this where I was? I don't know. And then another of them. Okay, what I just did is one time. You've got to do that 8 times and then undo one of them right at the end. It's not difficult. Well, on this cube it is. It's not a difficult sequence to remember or carry out, and for that reason, sometimes I just go, well, that's what I'm doing. There is another sequence though, and I'm just going to undo what I did to set that back up. Alright, back to where we were. This sequence that I'm going to show you was found for me, essentially, by a Twisty Puzzles forum member called 𝙏𝙃𝙄𝙎, P-A-W-N, like the chess piece. You know, the rooks and the bishops, and you've got a whole bunch of pawns on there as well. 𝙏𝙃𝙄𝙎. Okay, so what he actually found was a beautiful sequence that swapped these two parts here. So this edge piece plus these two with this edge piece plus these two. Now, he wasn't really using the corner piece series. He was using something very similar to it, but of course, being me, everything has to be corner piece series. And I guess most people would probably know that by now. So I said to him, I actually spent hours trying to modify the sequence that he'd done to come up with something that was involving the actual corner piece series. And I got to tell you, I got super close. In fact, the only thing that I missed was doing an extra turn like that. And if I'd done an extra turn at a certain stage, I would have been able to nut it out. But anyway, this guy is a bit of a quiet genius, and he managed to come up with this. So I'm going to show you it now. And what it's going to do, instead of swapping these two, it's actually going to swap the back and the up. So the back right and the up right edges. And that's what we need to achieve now. We actually need to do that swap. I might even do them so they swap on the yellow and the orange face. And that's all it touches. It won't touch the corners. So here we go. What we want to do firstly is do an F minus, which is like the slice behind the front face, and I'm going anti-clockwise. And then now what is it? It's a U minus, so it's like the slice under the up face going anti-clockwise. That's what I tried before I did my corner piece series. What he did was said, let's actually put another one in there as well, so that my starting point is that. So I've got three setups there, F minus, U minus, U minus. Now, I'm going to carry out the normal corner piece series, but this time when I do it, I'm going to turn both slices for left. Remember, I said all through this solve, I'm using the corner piece series. So here we go. Firstly, my upturn, if you like, then right, and then my upturn back, and now I do both of them. Continue. And return. There we go. Now, remember that at the start I had setups of F minus, U minus, and then I did an extra U minus. Well, now I'm going to undo that extra U minus by doing a U plus and put it to there. I'm now going to carry out exactly the same corner piece series. Here I go. And what were the two setups that I have not yet undone? I started with F minus, U minus, so now I'm going to do a U plus and an F plus. And what you can see is that that orange, green, and that yellow green have swapped. Nothing else has been touched. Yeah, you're right, it is magnificent. Beautiful sequence, and so you can do that if you were doing an approach where you had all the corners solved and you just ended up with two swapped edges. You could do that right at the end and then your cube would be solved. Me, I do corners last, so what I've now created is a situation where I've got a pair of swapped edges and a pair of swapped corners. That's great. I can now continue, go ahead and resolve my puzzle. Let's see what I've got. So I would now look at this and go, oh, there's two swapped edges. I better turn that face one turn and resolve. Okay, good. Now it's time to solve the corners. And of course, with my method, some of them have come out. That doesn't really bother me that much. So I just quickly resolve them. red, green, white, that's not helpful. Orange, green, white, also not helpful. There's one, orange, yellow, green, that can do that. So let's cycle those three. If it feels like every time I make a turn I'm kind of jamming against something, that's because it's true. It's exactly what's happening. It's a little bit frustrating after a while. Blue, orange, yellow. Can I get that? No, that's not going to work. Blue. This is one of those situations where it's kind of not super helpful. Let us, blue, orange, yellow, I could put that there. In fact, I could do that as a setup. Yep. Undo the setups. Okay, what does that leave me with? 3 corners. Now you remember that I had 2 swapped corners. Now I've got red, white, green going to here, green, white, orange going to here, red, blue, yellow going back to here. That's the normal course of events. That's what I'm aiming for, so I can now try and cycle home the last 3. That's got to come to here. That, if I like, is going to be a blue sticker, and I would like that blue, or because the blue sticker is going to come up to here, I want the colour in the blue face to be here before I start. So to set that up, I'll turn those 2 off, put that in position and return those 2. And now these 3 will solve correctly. Let's undo the setups. Lovely. And you can see after all that and some really continued and development of the corner piece series, and then a lovely sequence at the end to swap those 2 edges, our, whatever you want to call this thing, Super Mix-Up, Mix-Up Ultimate, is solved. Thanks for watching.